I'd like to thank Turkcell and MIT Enterprise Forum for bringing Bill Aulet to Turkey. And it's very fitting that he's doing his address to the students at what I think of as the Entrepreneurship University in Turkey. You know that this is one of our role models. You know, whenever I talk about entrepreneurial ecosystem and whenever I say the university is the missing link in Turkey, I always give the example of MIT, Stanford, and Cambridge. And then I go on and talk about the economy that MIT actually sprung. You know, the companies, the billions of, trillions of dollars, you know, the number of new startups, all the activity. Today, we're actually very fortunate. You don't have to read a report, Kaufman report, or listen to a president rant and rave about some other university. We'll actually get to listen from the man himself. You know, how does he do it? How did he do it? How is he doing it? And what else is in the plans? So thank you very much for being with us, Bill. And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rector Magnificus. So first of all, I must make one confession. I didn't do it. MIT happened without me. I do have a degree from MIT, and I've started 2 companies plus, and a third one that was out of MIT, and so I can talk about that. But before I do, I want to hear what you want to talk about. What do you want to hear? What are some of the questions that you're coming here today to hear about? And they told me that you would be more talkative. What do you want to hear about? Why are you here? That was too aggressive. I'm from New York, so I'm very aggressive. Is anyone else aggressive here? Why are you here?
We would like to listen to your experiences.
Experiences, okay. What else? What questions do you have? Can entrepreneurship be taught?
You better say yes.
Be taught. Remember, entrepreneurs like to go against what hierarchy. We don't like authority. Can entrepreneurship be taught? Okay, good question. Who had that? Is that you? Good. Do you think it can be taught?
I hope so, because that's what I'm doing.
Okay. We'll come back to that question. What other questions do you have? Please, entrepreneurship is not a spectator sport. This is not like being in a big company where you can just sit back and listen.
Tell us about a little bit MIT entrepreneurship climate.
MIT entrepreneurship climate, okay? What makes MIT unique? Yeah. MIT climate. Okay, what else? Come on now.
How do you start a company? They should ask, but I would ask.
How do you start a company? How do you, actually, how do you start a successful company?
Why do most students become entrepreneurs if they graduate from MIT?
Yeah, why do students become entrepreneurs? Now, let's think about this for a second. You graduate from MIT, and you could go work at Goldman Sachs, and you could make $250,000 a year and maybe make $1 million in 2 or 3 years. Or you could go work at McKinsey, and you could make $250,000 a year and maybe make $1 million in 2 or 3 years. And yet you go start a company where you don't know whether you're going to make payroll next Friday on your own credit card. These entrepreneurs are crazy. Why would they do that? Why do they do that? Very good question. What else? Anybody else? Yes?
Do you think these ideas can be applied to all of the climates, all of the geographies, like Middle East?
Yeah. Cultural differences. Let's say regional cultural differences. Can I use scientific notation? Differences. You know what's very interesting here is in this whole room, there's 2, 4, 6 females. No, there's about 7 women in this whole room.
It is statistically like that.
And that's what Turkey is? Yeah. I seem to see a lot more women outside. If that's true, I don't understand why your population is increasing so rapidly.
entrepreneurs, mostly.
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, should entrepreneurs, are males, can females be entrepreneurs? That's too provocative. So why?
Gender differences.
Okay, yeah, that's a more politically correct way to say it. Gender differences. Come on now, I'll talk about anything, all right? What else? Yes?
How entrepreneurship changed the world.
How entrepreneurship changed the world, okay? Change the world.
What is the magic behind the MIT Entrepreneurship Center?
The magic at MIT. MIT. Who asked that question?
Can I ask one?
Yes.
What do you do in your energy venture classes?
Energy, clean energy. Well, okay, clean energy. All right. Does this flip over? We're going to run out of clean energy. Okay, we have a lot of things now. This is good. So what I want to do is I'm going to start with some questions that I prepared for the one earlier today, that I want to start off with some basic understanding, all right? So first of all, let me say, I am not really an academic. We just lost one of the few women we had.
You said you're an academic.
So I am not an academic. I am really an entrepreneur. I do teach classes. I now teach 4 classes at MIT, and I really enjoy it working with people your age. But I am an entrepreneur first and foremost. So I don't go out and do kind of deep research, although I work with people who do deep research, and I appreciate that. But I consider myself Amadeus to their Mozart. Like, I can recognize real research, but I don't necessarily do it. So, but I'm really an entrepreneur. So but to do this, we have to define what is entrepreneurship, okay? First of all. And then we'll talk about why it's so important. And I think there's a misnomer sometimes as to what entrepreneurship is. And I want to start off with that. By the way, all these slides will be available to you and more. And so when people talk about entrepreneurship, I would tell you that there's 2 fundamentally different types of entrepreneurship. And the first one is what we'll call SMEs. These are small, medium enterprises, okay? This is your restaurant. This is your dry cleaner. This is your franchise that you got to copy something that was someplace else, but you want to do it in Istanbul. These are focused on regional markets. These are focused on regional markets where they're taking advantage of all the people that are here and you knowing that. Often these are service-based. And the people who start these want to work for themselves. They seek autonomy. They want to be in control, all right? And they can do it because these businesses often look like this. They're a service business often, a family business that kind of looks like this. It has kind of linear growth, all right? It doesn't require that much to get started. That is what we'll call SME dealing with regional markets. On the other hand, there's this other thing which I call IBE, which stands for Innovation-Based Entrepreneurship. These are fundamentally different. These go after global market opportunities, okay? Global markets. And these are often technology-enabled or based on technology, okay? And these over here, the people who are doing this are looking to create great value. They're looking to create market value. That means they want to get rich, okay? They want to make a real difference in the world by either accumulating a lot of money or making a big difference in the world. From the moment they start their company, they're thinking about, how do I sell this outside of Istanbul? How do I sell this outside of Turkey? All right? And these are based on some sort of technology, and the way these companies look is they look more like this. If this is cash flow, it takes some cash to get them going, but once they get going and they hit it, they don't grow non-linearly. They tend to grow exponentially, okay? They grow much faster, but it takes them a while to get going. So the delta T here to the system, when you put something in here, you'll get results faster. In this one, the results you'll get will actually be negative before you get this growth. But once you get these, you're going to get very rapid growth as opposed to linear growth. This type of company, the IBE, generates exports. This one is focused on the internal marketplace. So why do I bring this out? Because these two are much different than each other. We were just talking about this upstairs. Sometimes the Kauffman Foundation calls these high-growth gazelle companies. But the issue is when you mix these two up, both are good, by the way. Both are essential to have kind of a robust economy. And both we call entrepreneurial capacity. It's good to have both. But these are made for people who really want to be king. They want to be in control. Family businesses, right? They're not giving up ownership of it. This, on the other hand, is for people who want to get rich. And I put rich in parentheses because they might want to change the world. They might want to make a new solution for energy that's less environmentally toxic, shall we say. But these people want to be rich and these people want to be king. And it's very hard to be a rich king, unless you're in Saudi Arabia. But it's very, very hard to do both. And the mentality is different and the business processes are different. And what happens often is that if you do this and you do it well, you can be very good at it. A place like Babson do this very, very well. If you want to do this, you need to focus on this and do this very, very well. This is what we do at MIT, and this is what I'm going to talk about today. But it's important. When you look at governments and they try to do both, you end up getting it skewed towards this and less towards this because I get a quick response if I have money. I put it into this, I'll get jobs. And by the way, I can get jobs anywhere. These are more likely to be in Turkey. This would be much more likely to be in Istanbul. This you could spread out over the country, entire country. So you can generate jobs faster doing this than doing this. But what will you generate more jobs in the long term? This. So it depends what you want. These jobs will be more concentrated than this. Each have their pros and cons. That's a different, so that's the first question. What is entrepreneurship? Why is entrepreneurship so important? Well, if I had to give you one word why entrepreneurship is so important, it's jobs. It's jobs, okay? So the need to create new jobs is incredibly important right now. And this is why, governments everywhere are looking into this. The U.S. is actually funding a lot of places to help create jobs. If you look at Saudi Arabia, 59% of their population is under the age of 24. 59% of their population. The current estimate on the unemployment rate for Saudis is 40%. It's probably higher than that. So 40% unemployment for Saudis, and now you have this huge cohort of young people coming through to need jobs. Who's going to create those jobs? It's not going to be the government. It's not going to be the government. It can't be Saudi Aramco. There's only so many jobs that Saudi Aramco can do. Large companies are actually getting more efficient. So jobs are an incredible driver of this. And this, was Carl Schramm here last week at this?
Yes.
And did he speak to this group? Some.
Small overlap.
So the study done by the Kauffman Foundation was very interesting about the importance of entrepreneurship because between 1980 and 2005 in the U.S., there were 40 million net new jobs created. 40 million net new jobs created. That's a lot of jobs, right? Let's figure out who created those jobs. So if we just did a quick synopsis of this, companies 5 years old or less, or companies that were greater than 5 years old, okay? What percent, if you have something, what percent do you think were created by the big companies, the GMs, the Chryslers, all the companies that were 5 years old or more? 20%. 20%. 10%. So we're going down now. So 80%. So New companies that were 5 years old or less generated 20, 10%. Anybody else have a guess? That seems reasonable to you. 50%. 50%.
Are you talking about the first one or the second one right now?
Well, 50% it doesn't matter. But I'm talking about large companies.
The second one, okay. 10 or less.
5%. Wow. So this number is 0. Nil. Right? All the net new job creation was created by new companies. Not small companies, not SMEs, but new companies that are so as entrepreneurs, if you want jobs, you better damn well understand what's going on in entrepreneurship, and you better do everything you can to do that. Is that relevant in Turkey? As Sarah Palin would say, you betcha. You've got 26% of your population under 14. What are you going to do when you graduate? So I'll proselytize here for a second. So you can go learn great interviewing skills, and you should. You should learn great interviewing. You can polish up your resume. Or you can spend your time going out figuring out how to build the company, the job that you really want, doing exactly what you want. If you want to do clean energy and you want to make the world a better place and you want to make Turkey less dependent on foreign oil or something else, you can do that. How are you going to spend your time? And today, a lot of students that we have are saying, look, there's no job that's forever. There's no job that's forever. They're laying off actually tenured professors in universities now. Well, you could work for the government. Yeah, the government's forever, right? I wouldn't want to be in the U.S. Postal Service right now. Because that job is definitely not forever. How would you like to be in the Spanish government right now? Is that job forever? That job is not forever. If you want to control your own destiny, we can go through Lehman Brothers, Chrysler, all these companies that don't exist anymore. And you can do and I don't mean to turn you against large companies here. That's not what we're about. But I'm saying is that a lot of young people want to be able to control their own destiny and be able to create their own job and do it wherever they are. So entrepreneurship is extremely important. And to solve a lot of the world's great problems, yes, we need large companies to do some of that, but entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurial spirit, is going to be critical to help solve the clean energy challenges, the medical challenges we have. This past weekend, we just had something called Hacking Medicine at MIT, where they were figuring out how can you do medicine dramatically cheaper using new technology, new sensors, something like the Microsoft Kinect. How can we harness the power of that? And that's a kind of disruptive thinking that's not done well in large companies. That's what we need. 1,000 people in 1,000 different garages trying 1,000 different things. That's really what an entrepreneurial ecosystem is to me. A whole bunch of people trying a whole bunch of different things. So that's why it's important for jobs, number one, but also to help solve the problems. What did I do with the clicker? There it is. So now let's go back to the questions. Can entrepreneurship be taught? Well, you hope it can be taught. Well, what I'm going to tell you is that I think that it can be taught, but it's not taught just in a classroom like this. All right? And the reason why I say that, because I think about this a lot, just being kind of cynical, is that at MIT, we're successful in creating entrepreneurs. And why are we successful at it? And when you look at a lot of other places, they aren't successful. The first answer is you get the smart people at MIT. That's why it works. No, that's not true, right? Caltech gets people who are just as smart. Harvard gets people who are just as smart. Carnegie Mellon. There's a lot of places, but there's something going on at MIT which is extremely successful. And you can't attribute it to any one person. It also happens at Stanford, too. They're doing this study. And I'll show you just how important. Actually, I'll just go through that right now. Here's the Kaufman study, where Carl Schramm talked about it. MIT, today they're over, just in this magical mile of people going through MIT. And have any of you been to MIT? Who's been to MIT here? Been there? It's not very big. It's really quite small. And it's not pretty, is it? It's kind of ugly. It's a place, it is. I mean, after you've gone around Istanbul, you'll think this is crazy. And the weird thing about it is, like, it's a place where buildings have numbers and printers have names. It's a very geeky place in a lot of ways. It's not extraordinary. But in that magical mile, when people come into it, they leave it, and in each year, MIT alumni start 900 new companies. 900 companies, all right? And there's over 25,000 today, and the total revenue that comes out of these companies started by MIT is almost $2 trillion. Just to put that in perspective, that means that the MIT alumni, the companies are starting, is bigger than the GDP of Turkey. Much bigger. And it's the 11th biggest GDP in the world. And we don't have any oil in Cambridge in this mile. It's just the human brains that come out of it that are figuring out how to do this, right? So something's going on there at MIT. So let's go back to, we defined entrepreneurship. Let's define innovation for a second, all right? What is innovation? And I'm going to go a little faster here now to try to pick up. What's innovation? Innovation is something that creates value. Innovation is fundamentally different than invention. Invention is not innovation. An invention is a patent, an idea. Let me tell you, patents and ideas are cheap. It's execution and commercializing them that's expensive and hard, all right? So we use this simple equation, which should actually say not plus, because this should be a multiplication to be technical. Because if you don't have the commercialization, the invention is probably worth nothing, right? It's a multiplication factor between them. So if you invent something, then you commercialize it. Well, the key still is invention. Oh, is the key still invention? Well, let's take a look at that premise, that hypothesis, with MIT for a second. At MIT, we get over $1 billion a year for technology that's developed in our laboratories. That's a lot of money. And there's great stuff being done in the laboratories. And we have a fantastic technology licensing office that licenses that out. That technology it creates over 20 companies. Now this number is more like 30 companies a year are created by that. That's fantastic. That's world, as good as anybody else in the world at commercializing technology. But we have a cognitive dissonance going on right here. 30 seemed like an enormously good number until I told you that MIT alumni start 900 companies a year. A small fraction of the companies that come out of MIT are created by the technology that's funded and goes through the laboratories. This is very important stuff. This is Akamai. This is, which is a big company. There are some great companies, but these companies just teach us how to commercialize, going back to this thing, how to commercialize and identify good inventions, good technology. So what's going on at MIT is not so much a transfer of technology, but it's much more a transfer of knowledge as to how to identify good inventions and then commercialize them. That's what's going on, a transfer of knowledge, not a transfer so much of technology. Is the technology important? Hell yeah, it's real important. Because then our people, we get engineers, and they look at it, and we start working that you have to have what we call geeks in suits working together. You have to have the engineers and the business people working together, the hackers and the hustlers. The team is so much better than just a team of engineers or just a team of business people. So that's what we work on. How do you pull it all together? And this is crystal clear when you look at, we were just talking about this earlier today, crystal clear. What's the most innovative company in the world?
3M, Apple.
Apple. It's not 3M, and we could talk about 3M if anyone's interested. I love 3M, but it's not. And by the way, I have no vested interest in anything I'm talking about here. I am just an honest broker. I have no financial interest in anything I'm talking about. Apple is the most innovative company. It's not Google, and we could talk about that if anyone's interested. Apple, and repeatedly coming up with these huge new ideas, specifically Steve Jobs, the greatest entrepreneur of our generation, time after time. And iMac, the Mac, unbelievable breakthrough, right? So how did that come about? What's the fundamental technology breakthrough in IMAX? You all don't even remember. Does anyone remember here?
Case,
The case? No.
color,
No. This is great. The what?
the sliding,
The sliding thing at the bottom? No.
Design.
The design? No.
Surface.
This is great. Service? No.
software, Windows.
It's actually, yeah, what, someone said it. The Windows. Before the Macintosh, there was no Windows. It was just a bunch of characters that came up on the screen. And it was what's called Windows Icon Mouse Pointer. There was no mouse before the Macintosh. You all are so young, but it was, before that, I learned to program on punch cards, which is, yeah, I was there with the dinosaurs, yes. But it was how do you do Windows? Did Stephen Jobs come up with that? No. He saw that at Xerox PARC and said, that's a heck of an idea. And Xerox PARC did not know how to commercialize it, and he commercialized it. Xerox PARC made zero on it. He made billions, okay? The next thing you come across, let's fast forward to the iPod, all right? You all know what the iPod is. What's the fundamental enabling technology that allowed the iPod to happen?
Storage capacity. iTunes.
No. Sorry? iTunes. No, that was part of the solution that he put together. The fundamental technology is MP. Yeah, exactly. Digital music. Before that, you did not have it. It was MP3. Actually, that had been around a while. That was invented. Does anyone know? Someone got this in the last group. Does anyone know who invented MP3?
German.
Yes. When in doubt, say the Germans.
At Karlsruhe University, they invented the algorithm
Karlsruhe.
for the MP3.
Was it Karlsruhe? It was actually Fraunhofer has the patent. Fraunhofer. So it might have been. Was it Karlsruhe? So, okay. But anyway, the MP3 is the breakthrough there. Fraunhofer got nothing out of it. All these other companies tried to do it. It was Steve Jobs who figured out how to commercialize the MP3 and build the things around it to capture the value of digital music. It's brilliant. And you can say, well, that's an accident, you know. It wasn't an accident the first time, it wasn't an accident the second time, and it sure wasn't an accident the third time with the iPhone, was it? Was all that stuff around? It sure was. But no one commercialized it like they did. And then you can think about the tablet computing as well. But he's not the only one, by the way. He's just serially very good at it, and Apple is. If you look at Google, it's the same thing. You say, why is that? What is Google? What kind of company? No, they are not a search engine company.
Organizing data of the world.
No.
Company. It's a
Sorry?
commercial, ad company.
They are an ad company. Whenever someone tells you what they are, ignore what they say and just see where the money comes from, all right? Follow the money, all right? Google is an advertising company, full stop. Now, they'll tell you about their algorithm and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we did that stuff when we were at IBM, too. I worked at IBM for 11 years before I became a serial entrepreneur. But at Google, they are an advertising company. That's how they get their money. Do we have some CS people in here? Anyone a CS person? Well, you're pretty technical. Do you think that Google's algorithm is the best algorithm out there?
It's a good one.
It's a good one, yeah. But there are other ones that are certainly as good. It's now a big one, but why is it a big one? It's a big one because they learned the new advertising model. Before Google, you used to have Ask Jeeves and Yahoo, and they would have a little search bar someplace, and then they would have the dancing cowboy trying to sell you subprime mortgage. That didn't work out very well, just so you know. Then you'd have the Viagra ad, then you'd have, you know, the guy doing the muscles there like this, and you'd have all these silly things out here, right, to advertise, and they were limited by banner ads and the real estate space that was on here. Here's the breakthrough. What did it look like with Google? Nothing. You just had Google, right? Something like that. And you loved it because it was faster, it wasn't annoying. But how'd they make money? Because all the money making's gone. How do they make money? Come on, you know this. AdWords. What Google did is they sold the words. As opposed to being limited here, they said luxury car purchase, right? And if you put that in there, you could buy those words. You could buy those words. And if I'm BMW, I'm going to buy those words. And I'm going to pay a lot to get my name up there at the top of that. And by the way, I'll pay a lot more than if I'm sitting next to some dancing cowboy selling me subprime mortgages and Viagra, right? So this became something where they got bigger amounts of money, and their opportunity to get it was unlimited. They weren't limited by the real estate space of this. This is the brilliance of Google. This is how they make money just hand over fist now. They're an advertising company because of this. Did Google invent that?
No.
No. Who invented it?
The Yahoo company.
Overture. Overture. And by the way, to brag a little bit, the person who identified this was an MIT Sloan graduate, one of our very own, Gokul Rajaram. And that was it. The algorithm is great. Where the money was made was through this. And then embracing that and getting the rights to it and getting out there first and becoming that. Okay, so innovation, it's a commercialization that's important. And think about that. Don't get obsessed. And by the way, don't get obsessed with you have to come up with the idea. You have to find someone or identify another idea and then learn how to commercialize it. It doesn't have to be your idea. In some sense, you're very limited if it's just your idea. Okay, so let's just talk about what makes MIT successful. So here's an entrepreneurial ecosystem as we define it. And you have government. Government plays a role. They have regulation, tax incentive, laws. Stability has to be provided by the government. You have to have demand for products in your region, in your ecosystem. You have to have invention, some place that's inventing stuff, creating new ideas, new technology. You have to have some type of risk capital, some venture capital, that people usually think about. You have to have some angel funding. You have to have infrastructure. People have to be able to get on the internet. There have to be roads. There have to be accountants who know how to start companies and lawyers who will help you. And then there have to be the entrepreneurs, and they have to be educated and network together, and there have to be enough of them. And then you have this thing called culture, or lack thereof, when it comes to entrepreneurs. That was a joke, just so we're clear. It's late in the afternoon. So all of these things are like a team where you need all of them. The question is, which ones are the most important? And what came is that, well, venture capital is very important. You need venture capital because wherever you have entrepreneurs, venture capital's there. So venture capital's driving entrepreneurs. Not true, actually. It's actually the entrepreneurs are there that venture capital comes to get. That's the leading indicator. You have good if you come up and tell me right now you have a company that's now at $10 million and it's growing at 20% per quarter and your gross margins are 99%, I'll get you money here. I'll get you money here. And there'll be people who come. The world's flat. The money will come here to Istanbul or whatever if you have a great business. All right? So it turns out the world's flat for this. The world's also flat for demand. If you have a great product here in Istanbul, you can sell it around the world now. You can sell it physically or you can just sell it digitally. There's one of our, Zafar Khan in Pakistan, created a website called Sofazar. He sells tickets online. If you went to Boston tonight and there was a Boston Bruins hockey game and you bought a ticket, you're most likely buying that through Zafar Khan's company. So the world's flat actually now when you start thinking as an IBE about what demand there is outside of that and funding. And then invention, we just told you that invention is not that necessary. You need to identify it. And when I went to Romania, they actually have a pretty vibrant entrepreneurial community and they have no great university there either. So you start looking at these things. Infrastructure, either you have it or you don't. When it came to, again, places like Saudi Arabia, they poured money into the infrastructure, to the roads, to the internet, and they see no appreciable increase in entrepreneurial activity. Likewise, by the way, with venture capital. You see people set up venture capital funds and they have nothing to invest in. So what really drives entrepreneurial activity? Well, government has to play a role, but that's the third most important. So now it's down to entrepreneurs and culture. Turns out that entrepreneurs, you need entrepreneurs to drive the system. But to drive the entrepreneurs, you need culture, a culture that celebrates entrepreneurs. And I'll tell the same story that I told earlier today, and that is the story of Jeremy Lin. Jeremy Lin is a Taiwanese American who grew up in Palo Alto. He loved to play basketball, and he loved to ever since he was a little kid. But most of his Taiwanese friends didn't play basketball, so he went out and played basketball with whoever he could find. And he was a really good basketball player, and he went out and he kept playing in high school, and his high school team in California was so good that they won the state championship in California. That's a big deal. And he was the best player on the team. Here, Jeremy Lin, he had made it. And here was a great story. Young Taiwanese American grows up in Palo Alto, is going to go to Stanford and play basketball for Stanford, a big school basketball powerhouse. There's only one problem. Stanford wouldn't offer him a scholarship. By the way, no other Division I team of any repute was offering him a scholarship. So what did his parents do? His parents said, good Taiwanese parents, you should go to Harvard because you're never going to be able to play basketball for a living. Go to Harvard. So Jeremy Lin goes to Harvard. Assistant coach Billy Holden says, we got a good one here. And Jeremy Lin shows up, and he's working very hard. They have Jeremy Lin down on the depth chart. By the end of the first year, they go, this guy's very, very good. We didn't understand how good he was, probably because he's Taiwanese American. To make a long story short, Jeremy Lin becomes a sensational player at Harvard. They beat, this is Harvard. This is not a good basketball school. They beat, I even played there. They beat Boston College, and they beat North Carolina. Basketball powerhouses. Jeremy Lin was a star. And it came for the pros to draft. Jeremy Lin does not get a sniff, does not get drafted by the pros. I mean, 3 Turks have gotten drafted by the pros now. Is it 3 or more, Selchuk? I think it's more now. Jeremy Lin doesn't even get drafted. Why does Jeremy Lin not even get drafted? He went to Harvard. No, actually, that's not the reason, because he used Taiwanese, and Taiwanese just aren't good basketball players. This isn't going to last. There's something wrong here. Jeremy Lin, he loves basketball, and he works his way to get a tryout for one of the summer teams. He then goes to the summer team in Las Vegas, and you can see this on YouTube. He goes up against the #1 draft pick from Kentucky, which is like the ultimate. And the #1 draft pick is a guy by the name of John Wall. He basically eats John Wall's lunch. And they say, oh my God, maybe Taiwanese can play a little basketball. The Golden State Warriors then signed Jeremy Lin to a contract. Jeremy Lin plays in the National Basketball Association. He's not a sensation, but his uniform is the #1 selling uniform for much of the year. And Jeremy Lin has made it. So that's a very interesting story. Why are you telling us that? Well, I'm telling you that because I want you to know 2 things. One, the DNA of Taiwanese Americans will not change in the next 5 years. It's going to be the same DNA. Same people, it's going to keep going. I also guarantee you that in 5 years from now, there's going to be a boatload of good Taiwanese American basketball players. Sirs, I'm standing here. This is it. Why? Because they have a role model, Jeremy Lin, that showed them how it can be done. And now the young Taiwanese are going to go out and play, and they're going to wear their Jeremy Lin shirts, and they're going to say, I can do it too. And then they're going to go to the same clinics that they went to before, and they're going to listen, and they're going to internalize it, and they're going to work that much harder. And they're going to be a lot of good basketball players. And this happens in sports all the time. If you look at, it's at Lithuania where they have good basketball. It's a nation where they're extraordinarily good, preponderance. There's a place in Dominican Republic called the City of Shortstops. It happens in sports all the time. And I told this story in Romania, and they said, of course. When Nadia Comaneci won the gold Olympic, every girl in Romania became a good gymnast. And then when Ilie Nastase became a successful tennis player, all the men became tennis players. They had a preponderance of it. So not all of them, but a lot. So this culture turns out when you're infected with this virus that you can do it. You know, as I joke about renaming our center the Obama Center for Entrepreneurship, yes, you can be an entrepreneur. That might be the most important thing we do, because once they believe in it, they go to our classes, they do all the programs outside of class, like the business plan competition. How many of you were entered in the business plan competition? You all should do this. You're not going to become good entrepreneurs without it. When is it, Salchuk? It started. Okay. But next year, all these people are going to be entered in it. Because you have to try it. My first company, after I worked at IBM and I'd become an executive at IBM, my first company flamed out and was a failure. And it was necessary for me to do that to learn to become the second one, which was much more successful, and third one, which was very successful. It's a learning process. But you have to get involved. So they go to all these events, and they participate, and they're very, very involved. That's the magic of MIT, to be quite honest, is that they're role models, they're stories every day when you're there of people who can be an entrepreneur. And so when you do that, on our wall at the center, people write their names up when they're going to start a company. And I'll never forget the first day when we did this 3 years ago, and someone walked in, and they walked by the wall, and they said, "Creedy is starting a company? Damn, if Creedy can do it, I can do it." And then like 2 weeks later, that person's name was up there. They were going to start a company. And so this, you know, I know this sounds a little mushy, but this culture is extraordinarily important. And I don't know what it's like in Turkey, but I do know when I went to Andalusia that 90% of the young people wanted to go work for the government. That's crazy. The other 10% wanted to work for large companies. And the government's not going to create those jobs. That's just not, they're not going to. So this culture, and then going back to the classes and doing the entrepreneurship is extraordinarily important. The other thing that's very interesting is that when you look at this, I put this one up here, and this is Ireland, but when you look at it, it's very important that you understand entrepreneurship is not a competitive game. It's not, you know, MIT against Stanford versus Harvard. No, we're all in this together, and that if we work with, you know, Stanford, that we both gain from that. It's like the internet. The more people who are on the network, this is called Metcalfe's law, the more people who are on the network, the value of the network goes up exponentially. So we're not in competition. MIT's not in competition with you here. We want to help you, and we want to get your ideas back, and then we all gain. As I said this morning, the competition is not other universities. The competition is people who don't want to innovate. And frankly, the competition for me is Wall Street, who wants to take our best and brightest and not have them create companies and jobs, but rather have them create complicated financial mechanisms that are so confusing that they create financial chaos. So I'm sorry, do you have a financial department here? Rector? Oh, well, they won't like me, but that's not it. But that's what we look at the networking effect of it. Okay, so we look to educated MIT in the classroom. Very hands-on stuff, which I'll hopefully show you some here. And then we have a nurturing program outside it. You have an incubator here. And then we do that. We don't call it an incubator, but we have nurturing where we help them outside of the classroom start to apply their projects in the real world. So we call this skills, build up to real world capabilities, then building a network so that once you have your capabilities, now you can meet mentors, you can meet advisors, you can get employees, you can meet customers, you can meet investors. This is where you start to get your resources, because it's very important that entrepreneurs get resources. And by the way, you have to be very efficient about how you get your resources, because they won't be yours. You don't have a lot. And then we celebrate entrepreneurship. We say, it's okay you failed, that's all right. You know, I failed on my first one. We want to have a national day of failure at MIT, where people can talk about, you know, how they learn from it. Now, failure is good if you learn something from it. And then we call rinse and repeat, do it again. So that's what we do at MIT. That is called the magic at MIT. And that's the big cultural difference. Is that different regionally? Yeah, a lot of places they don't want to celebrate. entrepreneurship. They want to celebrate sports heroes. They want to celebrate actors. Yeah, that's the same thing in the United States. And by the way, it was the same thing in Pakistan. And then Pakistan, it's changing now. Pakistan really appreciates this. The problem in Pakistan is they don't have a stable government, so when entrepreneurs get their money, they tend to move it out of the country very quickly. So there are other inefficiencies, but the culture is definitely changing, which has been very good for them. So that's, in essence, kind of what we do at a high level. What I'd like to do, how much time do we have? Until 5? Do we have till 5? Because I'm going to give you a little lesson now in what we do at MIT. Is that okay? I do have until 5. Great. All right, so let's talk about how you build a successful company. Okay? So which one is this? This is number 2.
Can we have a break for 5 minutes?
Absolutely. You can do whatever you want. Part 2. 5 minutes? Okay. Come back and, yeah. Is there coffee out there? 5 minutes? Is that okay? All right, 5 minutes. We'll start back up. What is your name? Rouge comes along.
G-U-R.
Yes, he comes along. I'm sorry, I just can't. It's not. I don't mean to offend you. It's just I can't pronounce it. So he comes along and he has a Lada, and he shows up at her Ferrari dealership. Okay. Now her Ferrari. She set up a Ferrari dealership in Istanbul, and she's just come out of here. She's got a degree, and she is focused on making this successful. Okay. She's done her research. And she says, I'm going to do a Ferrari dealership. Here's another thing you should know. She has 3 people in her service department. She's selling and servicing Ferraris, okay? And we look back, and they're doing nothing right now, all right? They're doing nothing. He comes along with his Lada and says, can you fix my car? I have $400. And if it takes more than that, just let me know. Will you fix my car for $400? Okay? Could each of you figure out, just write down, would you take the Lada for $400, or would you not take the Lada, and why? I'll give you 60 seconds. Yes or no? And if yes, why? If no, why?
What is the real estimate for fixing that car?
$100, maybe.
Okay. So it's
Maybe 100, maybe 200. Let's say 200, okay? So 3 people sitting there doing nothing. She has it. Yes or no?
no.
Everyone have an answer. I'm going to choose someone. Yes or no? Okay. Yes or no? Do you take the $400? Assuming that US dollar is still worth something after. You're not sure. Do you take it? Yes or no? You're not sure. Mademoiselle?
No.
No. Why not?
We only service Ferraris. We don't want anybody else driving through the door and.
Let me explain something, okay? What is the single necessary and sufficient condition for a business? There's one and only one.
money transaction.
Cash. Cash positive. What about a business plan? A product? Passion. A mission statement. Products, right? Okay. Demand. So I have people who, actually I have some right here. Okay? So this is my students, and they will come in, and they will bring in their business plans, okay? So let's say, come in, and there's the business plan. Make sure I take this when I go self-check. It'd be very embarrassing. And they come in, and it's a photonics, you know, laser gallium arsenide thing that does amazing stuff, patented proprietary technology that's going to change the way silicon chips are made. And it's incredible. And people are going to need more chips for cell phones. And they've got a product plan, a mission statement, a good CEO, a funding plan, excellent financials, all that good stuff, right? And they bring it in, and they say, and I look through it, and they say, what do you think? And then I have a lemon, and I pull out a lemon, and I say, you know, they say, what else is a lemon? I said, I have a friend in our neighborhood, and their kid has a better business than yours right now. And they say, really, what's that? And what's the lemon about? Well, they take this lemon, and they squeeze it, and then they put water in, and they put some sugar in, and then they sell a glass of lemonade to someone. And they have customers that give them money, right? You have no customers here. You just have an idea. You don't have any paying customers. The single necessary and sufficient condition to have a company is a paying customer, right? You have to have paying customers. That's what business is about. Business isn't complicated. This isn't winning a Nobel Prize. You have to get customers to give you money for your product or your service. That's the definition of a business. So that's the single necessary and sufficient condition to have a business. So now let's go back and ask the question again. All right? Do you take it or not? Yes.
But which customers?
But which customers? So you wouldn't take it, or would you?
I wouldn't take it.
Isn't there
$400.
Because it is not
opportunity cost?
but I'm Ferrari dealer.
Yeah.
Have we ever
Yes.
had customers? Or never?
What?
We've never had customers after
He
that.
just opened up. She just opened up. Just opened.
Can we repair? Can we repair a Lada with our own?
Yes. A car is a car. You can look at that engine.
Yes, I will.
$400.
Yes.
He's $400. You got nothing.
What about opportunity cost? What if
Opportunity
5
cost.
minutes later a guy with the Ferrari comes in
And you just lost 4,000.
and you can't fix that car while you're fixing the Lada?
Okay, what do you do? Are you taking it or not? I'm the one asking questions here.
Something.
I don't know whether someone's going to come along. Do you take it or not?
I mean, I would
Come on, entrepreneurs need to make decisions. Are you going to take it?
It is like this. I wouldn't, as for the brand's name, but I would at the same time letting to another, my another relation. I mean, I have a portfolio. So
Are you a politician or an entrepreneur?
it would be together, in my opinion.